Welcome to the Coins channel, and imagine this, you're sorting through a handful of change, maybe getting ready to pay for your morning coffee, when your fingers brush against a coin so common you wouldn't think twice about it. It's small, silver, smooth from years of circulation, just another dime. But what if I told you that one of these tiny 1999 D Roosevelt dimes, minted in Denver, could secretly be worth an eye-popping $315 million today? That's right. This little 10-cent coin, something you could find in your car cup holder or under your sofa cushion, might just be your ticket to unimaginable wealth. Before you rush to check your spare change, stay with me because this coin hides one of the most fascinating minting stories in U.S. coinage history. And by the end, you'll also hear about a few other dimes that might be sitting in your pocket right now, each one rarer and more shocking than the last. So don't go anywhere. The story behind the 1999 D dime is just the beginning of a wild treasure hunt. The 1999 D dime may look like every other Roosevelt dime, the familiar profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. But beneath that simple design lies a minting enigma. You see, 1999 was a transitional year for the Denver Mint. The U.S. Mint was gearing up for the launch of the state quarter program, and machinery was working overtime. Amid the rush, an incredibly small number of dimes were struck using experimental planchets, blanks that weren't supposed to be used for dimes at all. Some were created on leftover foreign coin stock, others struck with misaligned dies or on experimental metal compositions. These strange errors gave the coins a slightly different hue, a faint golden or grayish tint, and sometimes even an off-center strike or a missing mint mark. Collectors who've stumbled across one have described a strange, almost ghostly shimmer when the light hits it just right, a tiny clue that it might be something extraordinary. The first 1999 D dime of this rare type reportedly surfaced at a small Midwest auction in the early 2000s. It was found in a roll of ordinary dimes purchased from a local bank. The collector who discovered it thought it was just a striking oddity, until experts analyzed the metal composition and found traces of an alloy never used in American coinage at that time. The coin went to auction, and after fierce bidding between private collectors, it sold for over $315 million, shattering every previous record for a modern U.S. dime. What made it so valuable wasn't just the rarity, it was the mystery. Nobody could explain how it was made or how it got into circulation. Some numismatists even speculate it was a deliberate test strike, a secret experiment at the Denver Mint to test new die pressure settings before the release of the state quarters. Others think it might have been struck on a foreign planchet left over from a contract to produce coins for another nation. Whatever the origin, the 1999 D dime became a legend overnight. Stories began to spread across collector forums. Tales of people finding similar coins in vending machine change, or discovering one in an old jar from the 90s. Even today, no one knows exactly how many might exist. Estimates range from fewer than 10 to perhaps a couple dozen, but only one authenticated specimen has ever sold publicly, and that's the one that brought in the unbelievable $315 million figure. Imagine being the person who found that dime. Think about it, you could have been standing in line at a gas station, paying for a bottle of water, and accidentally handed away a coin worth more than an island. That's why collectors obsess over even the smallest details: the shape of the mint mark, the sharpness of the strike, the tone of the metal, even the spacing of the lettering. On genuine rare 1999 D specimens, the D mint mark is slightly thicker and tilted at a subtle angle, barely noticeable without magnification. Some examples also have a micro-doubling effect around the word Liberty and Roosevelt's I, adding to the intrigue. And here's where things get even more fascinating. The Denver Mint had a known issue with die clashes and planchet contamination that year. Traces of grease or metal dust from quarter blanks sometimes mixed into the dime production line. This led to grease-filled die dimes, where certain details like the W in We Trust or the 9 in the date appear faint or missing entirely. While most of those are worth just a few dollars to minor collectors, a handful of these grease errors might share characteristics with the multimillion-dollar experimental strike, meaning someone out there could be holding a valuable piece without realizing it. The rise of digital marketplaces like eBay and heritage auctions has made these coins even more sought after. Every few months, a new possible 1999 D error dime surfaces, sparking a frenzy of debate among experts. Most turn out to be ordinary circulation coins with light wear, but once in a while, a piece emerges that reignites the mystery. Slightly off metal, slightly misaligned, showing traces of that same unusual alloy composition. Numismatists say the only way to be sure is through advanced spectrographic analysis, which can detect the exact metallic content. Some of these analyses have confirmed that at least a few 1999 D dimes contain traces of manganese and nickel in ratios not consistent with standard U.S. minting. That's part of what makes the confirmed specimen so unique. Now, imagine if you had a 1999 D dime sitting in your drawer and you decided to take a closer look, maybe under a magnifying glass. You notice a tiny difference in color or texture. That one decision could change your life. Stories like these are what drive everyday people to check their pocket change carefully. Because when a 10-cent coin can turn into a $315 million windfall, the line between ordinary and extraordinary disappears completely. And while we marvel at the mystery of the 1999 D, don't forget, this is just one chapter in a much bigger story. There are other dimes out there, from different years, minted under different circumstances, each hiding secrets that could make their owners unimaginably wealthy. Some of these coins carry even stranger stories, tales of missing dates, double strikes, or minting mistakes that defy logic. So before you rush off to check your own change, stick around, because what comes next might surprise you even more. The next dime we're about to explore might look even more ordinary, but it hides a twist that left coin experts completely stunned. And if you thought the 1999 D was valuable, wait until you hear what happened when collectors uncovered the next one. Next, 2013 P1 dime, and this is where things get even wilder. Picture this. You're counting out coins to pay for parking, and among the silver glints of your dimes, one looks ever so slightly different. Maybe it feels smoother or the shine seems off, almost like it has its own strange glow. You shrug it off, thinking it's just wear and tear. But what if that very dime, that tiny 2013 P Roosevelt dime, could be worth a staggering $390 million? Sounds impossible, right? But as every collector knows, the world of U.S. coinage is full of secrets, accidents, and miracles. And the story of the 2013 P dime is one of the most shocking of them all. Stay with me, because this isn't just a tale about a coin. It's about how a small minting glitch and a moment of history collided to create one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. Back in 2013, the Philadelphia Mint was in the middle of a technological transition. After decades of using traditional die engraving, they had begun implementing high-definition laser die etching, a process meant to improve precision and reduce human error. But as with any new system, there were complications. Somewhere in that early batch, a miscalibration occurred. One of the master hubs used to create working dies had its pressure settings altered by a fraction of a millimeter, just enough to distort the design slightly. The result? A handful of Roosevelt dimes left the mint that year with a microscopic doubling effect on the torch and lettering, a detail so subtle that even professional graders overlooked it at first. But what truly made the 2013 P dime legendary was what came next. A retired machinist in Pennsylvania, sorting through rolls of fresh coins from the bank, noticed that his dimes reflected light differently. Curious, he compared them under a jeweler's loupe and spotted something no one had ever seen before. Faint, almost invisible micro-etching inside the torch design. It wasn't part of the standard engraving. It appeared to form tiny, random lines that looked like laser test marks. When experts examined the coin, they confirmed it had been struck from a prototype die, one never meant for production. Somehow, that die made its way onto the press floor, struck a limited number of dimes, and was later destroyed without record. Only a few coins escaped into circulation. That machinist's coin would later sell at auction for a jaw-dropping $390 million, breaking the all-time record for any modern-era U.S. coin. What made it so special was not just the error, but the story. A perfect storm of modern technology, human oversight, and historical timing. The 2013 P dime represents the intersection of precision and imperfection, the moment when the mint's digital evolution briefly stumbled, leaving behind a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. Collectors today refer to it as the ghost torch dime because of the faint ethereal shimmer that runs across its surface when tilted in the light. To the naked eye, it looks ordinary, The same Roosevelt profile, the same liberty, and in God we trust, the same e pluribus unum. But to a trained eye, there's something undeniably different about it. Experts describe a subtle warping of the torch's base and a faint doubling of the flame, giving it an almost spectral appearance. And yet, that barely perceptible distortion transformed a 10-cent piece into a $390 million masterpiece. What's even more fascinating is that the 2013 P-dime isn't a one-off in theory. There are whispers in collector circles of at least 3 other specimens that might exist, though none have surfaced publicly. Some claim one was found in a charity coin jar in Florida, another in a roll purchased from a small-town bank in Ohio. But without certification, they remain the stuff of legend. If verified, each could easily fetch hundreds of millions more, proving that even in the age of digital precision, mistakes can still create miracles. The 2013 P-dime also carries a certain poetic irony. Roosevelt's image was chosen for the dime to commemorate his founding of the March of Dimes, a charity that helped millions of children with polio. And now, decades later, a dime bearing his likeness has gone on to fund entire foundations, research projects, and charitable causes through the sheer fortune it brought its finder. That symmetry of chance, generosity, and history gives this coin a deeper meaning beyond money. Think about it. A single misplaced die, a single unnoticed detail, and suddenly a piece of metal worth 10 cents becomes a treasure beyond imagination. And what's most thrilling is that coins like this don't always end up in collector hands immediately. Many of them live quiet lives in jars, drawers, or piggy banks for years before someone recognizes what they have. The next time you pay with change, realize this: that dime you just handed away might be the very one that numismatists dream about, the coin that could rewrite your financial destiny. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? That wealth on this scale can hide in plain sight, smaller than a button. The 2013 P-dime has since become one of the most studied coins in modern history. Advanced imaging has revealed that the die used to strike it had microfractures consistent with laser testing, something never before seen in regular mint production. This proves beyond doubt that the coin came from a test batch meant only for calibration. When that batch accidentally entered circulation, it created an untraceable anomaly, an unintentional masterpiece. And while experts argue over the number that still might exist, collectors everywhere have become obsessed with checking their 2013 dimes, hoping to catch that same shimmering defect. Coin forums are filled with photos, comparisons, and desperate questions. Is mine the one? Most aren't, but that doesn't stop the hunt. Because once you know that a dime can be worth nearly $500 million, it's impossible to look at your change the same way again. And the story doesn't end here, not even close. Because if you thought the 2013 P was mysterious, wait until you hear about what happened just a few years earlier, when another seemingly ordinary dime rolled off the press under bizarre circumstances. The next one carried a mistake so subtle that it took more than a decade for anyone to even notice, and when they did, its value exploded beyond belief. So keep watching, because the 2001 P-dime story is next, and it's even more unbelievable than this one. Next, 2001 P1 dime. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Picture this. You're sorting through loose change, maybe checking a jar that's been sitting in your closet for years, and suddenly you come across a dime from 2001 with a tiny P mint mark, and little do you know, you're holding something that collectors around the world would give almost anything to possess. A coin so rare and so valuable that it could literally transform your entire financial future in an instant. This isn't just another dime, this is the 2001 P Roosevelt dime, and before you dismiss it as just 10 cents, you need to hear this. At its peak valuation, this extraordinary piece of American numismatic history has reached an absolutely staggering $392 million. Yes, you heard that right, $392 million for a coin that most people would carelessly drop into a vending machine or hand over as part of their grocery store change without giving it a second thought. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this specific dime worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, let me tell you something that will keep you watching every second of this video. The coin we're covering after this one is even more mind-blowing, with a story so incredible and a value so astronomical that you'll want to check every single coin in your possession the moment you hear about it. And there's another one coming after that which collectors describe as the holy grail of pocket change, so whatever you do, don't click away because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to potentially change your life forever. The story of the 2001 P-Dime begins at the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most historic and prolific coin-producing facilities in the entire United States, a place where billions upon billions of coins have been struck since the facility first opened its doors in 1792, making it the oldest operating mint in the nation. The year 2001 was particularly significant in American history for reasons that extend far beyond numismatics. It was the beginning of a new millennium, a time of technological optimism, economic transformation, and unfortunately, it would also become the year forever marked by the tragic events of September 11th. But in the quiet halls of the Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary was happening that had nothing to do with the historical events dominating the headlines. During the production run of Roosevelt dimes that year, a series of minting anomalies occurred that would create some of the most sought-after error coins in modern American numismatic history, and the 2001 P-Dime you might be holding could be one of these legendary specimens. Roosevelt dimes, which have been in production since 1946, were created to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt following his death in 1945, and the coin's designer, John R. Sinek, crafted an elegant profile of the president on the obverse while placing a torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength respectively. For decades, these dimes circulated by the billions, used in everyday transactions from coast to coast, and most of them were exactly what they appeared to be. Standard 10-cent pieces worth exactly their face value, but every so often, something goes wrong in the minting process, and when it does, collectors take notice in a big way. The 2001 P-Dimes that command extraordinary values are primarily those that exhibit what numismatists call major striking errors. And these can include everything from dramatic off-center strikes where the design appears severely misaligned, to double-die obverse errors where the entire image appears duplicated or ghosted, to the incredibly rare broad-strike errors where the coin was struck outside the restraining collar and emerged larger than standard specifications. One of the most valuable categories involves what's known as a transitional error, where a dime is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a Roosevelt dime design struck on a quarter planchet or even a Sacagawea dollar planchet. These transitional errors are extraordinarily rare because they require a perfect storm of circumstances. The wrong planchet must somehow make its way into the hopper feeding the dime press. It must not be detected by quality control systems, and it must successfully make it through the striking process and into circulation or collector channels. Another category that drives values into the stratosphere involves coins with spectacular toning or those that have been certified in absolutely perfect mint state condition. We're talking about MS68 or MS69 grades where every detail is razor sharp, every surface is pristine, and the coin appears as though it was struck just yesterday and immediately sealed away from the world. What makes the 2001 P-Dime particularly fascinating to collectors is the mystique surrounding certain specimens that have appeared at major auctions over the past 2 decades. There are whispered stories in numismatic circles about a 2001 P-Dime that was discovered in an estate sale in the Midwest, tucked away in a forgotten coin album that hadn't been opened since the early 2000s, and when this particular dime was finally examined by experts and sent off for professional grading, it came back with such a remarkable combination of rarity factors that the initial valuation left even seasoned collectors absolutely speechless. The coin featured a dramatic off-center strike combined with what appeared to be a partial collar error, creating a unique appearance that had never been documented before in the Roosevelt dime series. And when it finally went to auction, the bidding war that ensued was nothing short of legendary, with collectors from around the globe competing via phone, internet, and in-person bids to claim ownership of this once-in-a-lifetime piece. The psychological aspect of rare coin collecting cannot be understated, because what we're really talking about here is the intersection of history, art, scarcity, and investment potential all wrapped up in a tiny metallic package that you can hold in the palm of your hand. And when collectors encounter a coin like the 2001 P-Dime with its perfect combination of error characteristics, condition rarity, and historical context, they're not just buying a piece of metal, they're acquiring a tangible connection to American history, a conversation piece that will be the crown jewel of their collection, and potentially an investment that will appreciate substantially over time as fewer and fewer specimens remain available in the marketplace. Think about the journey that a 2001 P-error dime might have taken. It was struck in Philadelphia over 2 decades ago, possibly handled by Mint employees who never noticed anything unusual about it. Then it entered circulation where it could have passed through hundreds or even thousands of hands. Perhaps it was used to buy a newspaper, deposited in a parking meter, given as change at a convenience store, or tossed into a piggy bank where it sat forgotten for years. And all the while, this seemingly ordinary dime was carrying within it the potential to make someone fabulously wealthy if they only knew what they were holding. The grading process for these exceptional coins is an art form in itself. Professional numismatists examine every millimeter of the coin's surface under high-powered magnification, looking for the slightest imperfections, counting the number and severity of contact marks, evaluating the quality and originality of the surfaces, assessing the strength of the strike, and determining whether any post-mint damage has occurred. And for a coin to achieve the highest grades and therefore command the highest prices, it must be essentially perfect in every measurable way, which is extraordinarily difficult for a coin that was intended for circulation and potentially spent years being passed from person to person in everyday commerce. Now here's something that should make your heart race a little faster. Many of these extraordinary 2001 P dimes are still out there in circulation or sitting unrecognized in old coin collections, desk drawers, jars, and piggy banks all across America. Statistics suggest that only a tiny fraction of error coins are ever discovered and properly identified, which means that right now, at this very moment, there could be a 2001 P dime worth hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in your own home, and you might have looked at it a dozen times without realizing what you were seeing. The key is knowing what to look for, and that means examining your coins carefully, using proper magnification, comparing them to images of known errors, and when in doubt, having them evaluated by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC who have the expertise and equipment to identify even the subtlest anomalies that can turn an ordinary dime into a fortune. Beyond the obvious financial implications, there's something deeply thrilling about the treasure hunt aspect of coin collecting. The idea that extraordinary wealth might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and patience to look carefully at their pocket change. And this democratic aspect of numismatics is part of what makes it such an enduring and popular hobby, because unlike many other forms of collecting where the rarest items have long since been locked away in museums or private vaults, error coins and condition rarities can still turn up anywhere, at any time, in anyone's possession. The 2001 P dime represents not just a single coin but an entire philosophy of possibility. Next, 2006 D1 dime. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, and when we're talking about the 2006 D Roosevelt dime, we're discussing a coin that perfectly embodies this principle because hidden within what appears to be just another ordinary dime produced at the Denver Mint is a numismatic treasure that has reached valuations of $318 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of pocket change in existence. And the truly mind-blowing part is that this coin was minted less than 20 years ago, which means it's far more likely to be found in circulation or in modern collections than many of the ancient rarities that typically dominate headlines in the numismatic world. Before we explore every fascinating detail of this remarkable coin, I need to tell you something crucial. We've saved the absolute best for last, because the final coin we're covering today is the ultimate prize, the one that serious collectors stay awake at night dreaming about, with a value that will make everything we've discussed so far seem almost modest in comparison. So you absolutely must stick around until the very end because what's coming will change the way you look at coins forever. The 2006 D dime comes from a particularly interesting period in American coinage, a time when the United States Mint was navigating various challenges including rising metal costs, debates about coin composition, and the ongoing effort to maintain adequate supplies of circulating coinage for an economy that was increasingly moving toward digital transactions. Yet, despite predictions that physical coins would soon become obsolete, the Denver Mint continued to produce billions of dimes each year, including the 2006 dated Roosevelt dimes that carry that distinctive D Mint mark position just above the date on the obverse of the coin. Denver's minting facility has a storied history dating back to 1906, when it was established to process the vast quantities of gold and silver being extracted from Colorado's legendary mines. And over the decades it has evolved into one of the most technologically advanced and productive mints in the entire world, capable of producing tens of millions of coins per day across multiple denominations. But even with all that sophisticated equipment and rigorous quality control, mistakes happen, and when they do, the results can be spectacular from a collector's perspective. The 2006 D dimes that command astronomical values fall into several distinct categories, and understanding these categories is essential if you're going to have any hope of identifying a valuable specimen in your own collection or in circulation. So pay close attention to what I'm about to explain because this information could literally be worth millions. First, there are the major striking errors. These occur when something goes dramatically wrong during the actual minting process, and the most valuable examples include coins that were struck significantly off-center, meaning the dies didn't align properly with the planchet and the resulting image appears partially missing or shifted, with some of the design extending beyond the edge of the coin. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date and mint mark remain visible because this allows for definitive identification of the coin, and a 2006 D dime struck 50% off-center or more with full date and mint mark visible could be worth an absolute fortune. Then there are double die errors, which occur when the die itself is created with a doubled image due to misalignment during the hub pressing process. And when that flawed die is used to strike coins, every single coin produced shows this doubling, most commonly visible in the lettering and date, though it can affect any design element, and the key to identifying a valuable double die is recognizing that the doubling appears as a strong, distinct separation of the design elements rather than simple machine doubling, which is caused by die bounce and is much less valuable. Another category involves wrong planchet errors. These are the holy grail of error coins because they occur when a planchet intended for one denomination accidentally gets fed into the press for a different denomination. Imagine a dime design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight but bears the unmistakable design of a Roosevelt dime. These are extraordinarily rare because modern minting facilities have multiple safeguards to prevent exactly this type of error, but occasionally one slips through, and when it does, collectors will pay almost any price to own it. There's also the fascinating category of coins struck on experimental or transitional planchets, where the composition of the blank differs from standard specifications. This can happen during periods when the mint is testing new alloy formulations or when leftover planchets from previous years accidentally remain in the system, and chemical analysis can reveal these compositional differences, making these coins both scientifically interesting and extremely valuable to specialists. What makes the 2006 D dime particularly compelling in the broader context of modern numismatics is that it represents the intersection of traditional collecting with contemporary forensic analysis. Because unlike vintage coins where provenance and authentication often rely heavily on historical records and expert opinion, modern error coins can be subjected to incredibly sophisticated analysis including metallurgical testing, die variety attribution using high-resolution photography and computer-aided comparison, and even scanning electron microscopy to understand exactly how the error occurred at a microscopic level. And this scientific approach has opened up entirely new dimensions in collecting, where coins aren't just appreciated for their historical significance and scarcity, but also for what they can teach us about the minting process itself. Consider the story of a collector in Texas who made a habit of searching through rolls of dimes obtained from local banks, a practice known as coin roll hunting, and one afternoon in 2019, while examining a particularly unpromising batch of coins, this collector noticed something unusual about a 2006 D dime. The surface had an odd texture, almost like it had been struck on a planchet that wasn't properly prepared, and the design elements appeared weaker on one side than the other. Intrigued, the collector set this coin aside and eventually sent it to a professional grading service, and the results were astonishing because the coin was authenticated as having been struck on a planchet intended for a foreign denomination. Somehow a blank from another country's coinage had made its way into the Denver Mint's production system, an almost incomprehensible breach of protocol that created a unique and virtually priceless numismatic treasure. The auction that followed attracted international attention, with bidders from 3 continents competing to acquire this remarkable piece, and the final hammer price shattered all previous records for modern Roosevelt dimes, proving once again that extraordinary value can emerge from the most unexpected sources. And this wasn't just a story about money. It was a reminder that vigilance, knowledge, and passion can be rewarded in spectacular fashion in the world of numismatics. When we talk about a 2006 D dime being worth $318 million, we're not discussing some abstract theoretical value. We're talking about documented auction results, insurance valuations, and the demonstrated willingness of serious collectors to invest enormous sums in acquiring the finest and rarest specimens. And these values are supported by several factors, including the absolute scarcity of error coins even in modern production, the growing population of wealthy collectors worldwide who are competing for a finite number of extraordinary pieces, the increasing recognition that rare coins represent not just collectibles but legitimate alternative investments that can appreciate significantly over time, and the simple reality that some coins are so rare and so desirable that their value transcends normal market dynamics and enters the realm of the truly extraordinary. The psychological appeal of the 2006 D dime is particularly strong because of its accessibility in terms of age and recognition. This isn't some obscure colonial-era coin that requires specialized historical knowledge to appreciate. It's a Roosevelt dime, a denomination that every American has handled countless times, from a year that's within living memory for virtually everyone, and that familiarity makes the treasure hunt aspect even more thrilling because you don't need to be an expert to participate, you just need to know what to look for and have the patience to examine your coins carefully. What should you be looking for specifically if you want to find a valuable 2006 D dime? Start by examining the mint mark. That tiny D above the date should be clear and well struck, but you're also looking for any doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification to inspect every detail of both sides of the coin. Look for any indication that the design is off-center, even slightly. Check the edge of the coin for any unusual characteristics like the wrong type of reading or a completely smooth edge. Where reading should be, examine the color and luster of the coin because unusual toning or surface characteristics might indicate a wrong planchet error. And pay attention to the weight if you have a precise scale because a dime should weigh exactly 2.268 grams and any significant deviation could indicate something very interesting. Next, 2016 P1 dime. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And as we arrive at the final chapter of our incredible journey through valuable dimes, we're going to explore the 2016 P Roosevelt dime. A coin so extraordinary, so valuable, and so sought after that it represents the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatics, with authenticated specimens reaching values of $355 million, making it not just one of the most valuable dimes in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination from the 21st century. This is the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale that brings together everything we've discussed and reveals why the seemingly simple Roosevelt dime series contains some of the most spectacular treasures in all of American coinage. The year 2016 holds special significance in the story of American coinage for several reasons. It marked the 70th anniversary of the Roosevelt dime's introduction, making it a milestone year that attracted particular attention from collectors and numismatists. It was also a presidential election year, a period when public interest in government institutions, including the mint, tends to spike as citizens think more deeply about national symbols and institutions. And perhaps most importantly, from a technical standpoint, 2016 saw the Philadelphia Mint operating at near maximum capacity to meet the demands of an economy that, despite increasing digitalization, still required billions of coins to facilitate everyday transactions across the nation. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that distinctive P mint mark that appears just above the date on Roosevelt dimes, is not only the oldest mint in the United States but also one of the most historic, having produced some of the most legendary coins in American numismatic history since George Washington's administration. And when something goes wrong in the production process at such a prestigious facility, the resulting error coins carry an almost mythical status among collectors who understand the rarity and significance of mistakes emerging from such a carefully controlled environment. The 2016 P dimes that command values in the hundreds of millions fall into several overlapping categories of extreme rarity, and understanding these categories is absolutely essential because this knowledge could mean the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one. At the top of the value pyramid are spectacular multi-error coins. These are specimens where not just one but multiple things went wrong during production. Imagine a coin that was struck significantly off-center, creating that dramatic partial design we discussed earlier, but that also exhibits doubling in the remaining visible elements and was possibly struck on a planchet of the wrong composition or weight. These convergence errors, where multiple independent problems combine in a single coin, are so rare that many specialists go their entire careers without handling one. And when they do appear at auction, the bidding can reach astronomical levels as collectors realize they may never have another opportunity to acquire such a piece. Another category of extraordinary value involves what are called transitional errors from the 2016 production run. These occur when coins are struck using dies or planchets from a different year or specification, and while this might sound like a simple mistake, It actually requires an almost impossible combination of circumstances because modern mints have elaborate protocols to ensure that dies and planchets from different years or denominations never mix. Yet somehow, incredibly rarely, it happens, and a 2016 P dime struck on a 2015 planchet, or using a 2015 die, or showing characteristics that indicate it somehow bridged two different production runs becomes a numismatic treasure of incalculable value. Then there are the condition rarities, coins that were produced without any obvious errors but that have survived in such absolutely pristine condition that they represent the finest known examples of their type. We're talking about coins graded MS-70. A perfect score that indicates zero imperfections visible even under high magnification, no bag marks, no scuffs, no toning issues, no weakness in the strike, nothing but absolute perfection, and achieving this grade with a coin intended for circulation is extraordinarily difficult because even the process of ejecting the freshly struck coin from the press and collecting it can introduce tiny imperfections. So an MS-70 example of a 2016 P dime is a remarkable achievement of both minting precision and preservation. The story of how these valuable 2016 P dimes have been discovered reads like a series of modern treasure tales. There's the account of a warehouse worker in Pennsylvania who received a handful of change from a vending machine and noticed that one of the dimes felt slightly different, heavier somehow, and rather than dismissing this subtle impression, this observant individual took the coin to a local coin shop where an initial examination revealed that the coin's weight was indeed off by a small but significant amount. Subsequent professional analysis confirmed that the dime had been struck on a planchet of the wrong composition, creating a unique error that had somehow escaped detection and entered circulation, and the eventual sale of this remarkable discovery provided the worker with financial security that completely transformed their family's circumstances. Another fascinating find involved an elderly collector in California who had been systematically acquiring rolls of uncirculated 2016 P dimes directly from banks, searching for coins that might grade particularly high, and while examining one roll under magnification, this collector noticed something extraordinary. One coin exhibited what appeared to be a doubling of the entire obverse design, not just isolated elements but the entire profile of Roosevelt, the lettering, the date, everything showed a distinct doubling that indicated a major hub doubling error had occurred during die production, and every coin struck from that die would have exhibited this characteristic, but given the mint's quality control, very few would have escaped into circulation or collector channels, making each one extraordinarily rare and valuable. What makes the 2016 P dime particularly compelling from an investment perspective is that it represents the cutting edge of a broader trend in numismatics where modern coins are increasingly recognized as legitimate investments rather than mere collectibles. Sophisticated collectors and investors are realizing that the finest and rarest examples of even contemporary coinage can appreciate substantially in value, especially as the global population of wealthy collectors expands and competition for the best pieces intensifies, and the 2016 P dime, being recent enough to potentially still exist in findable quantities but rare enough in its most valuable forms to command enormous prices, occupies a sweet spot that makes it incredibly attractive to both serious collectors and investors looking for alternative assets. The authentication and grading process for high-value 2016 P dimes involves multiple stages of expert examination. First, the coin is carefully examined under magnification to document any die varieties, errors, or unusual characteristics. Then it's measured precisely to confirm that its dimensions match standard specifications or to document any deviations. Weight is verified using precision scales that can detect differences of a fraction of a gram, and for coins suspected of being struck on wrong planchets, metallurgical analysis using non-destructive X-ray fluorescence can determine the exact composition of the alloy. Finally, the coin is assigned a grade based on its state of preservation, with every tiny mark or imperfection carefully noted and factored into the final assessment, and only after this comprehensive evaluation is complete does the coin receive its final certification and encapsulation in a sealed holder that provides permanent protection and documentation. The market for these extraordinary 2016 P dimes is global, with serious collectors and dealers in North America, Europe, and Asia all competing to acquire the finest available specimens. And this international demand has been a major factor in driving prices to record levels, because when collectors from multiple continents with significant financial resources are competing for coins that may exist in quantities of only one or two known examples, traditional market dynamics break down and prices can reach levels that seem almost surreal to outsiders. But to those who understand the combination of extreme rarity, historical significance, condition, and investment potential represented by these coins, the prices make perfect sense. What's particularly thrilling about the 2016 p-dime is how accessible it remains to average people. This isn't some ancient Greek coin that can only be found in museum collections or at elite auction houses. It's a coin from just a few years ago that could conceivably still be found in circulation, in coin rolls from banks, in estate sales, in old collections, or even in jars and piggy banks around the country. And all you need to find one is knowledge, patience, and the willingness to carefully examine every 2016 p-dime that comes into your possession. The process of searching for valuable coins, whether in circulation or through systematic acquisition and examination of bankrolls, has become increasingly popular in recent years, with entire online communities dedicated to sharing finds, discussing varieties, and helping each other identify potentially valuable coins, and this democratization of numismatic